Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel where I talk about movies. And today I'd like to talk about a 1942 French film called Strangers in the House, a recent release from Kino Lorber, and it's got some heavy hitters in the talent department in this film. Not the least of which is Henri Georges Clouzot, who wrote the screenplay. Clouzot, famous for Diabolique and Wages of Fear. He based his screenplay on a novel by Georges Simenon, one of Simenon's psychological novels. This is not a Inspector Maigret novel. Simenon is most highly praised mostly for his psychological novels, of which there was probably a couple hundred, and many of them have been adapted into movies. And this particular movie, Strangers in the House, was adapted 2 or 3 more times, once in English language version with James Mason. The director is Henri Decoin, who I know the name, but this is the first movie I ever saw directed by him. But he was a very commercially successful film maker and made a lot of film noirs. I suppose you could put this into a film noir category. But the main reason that this film is worth seeing is this particular actor right here, Raimu. And Raimu was a big star. You might know him if you've seen Marcel Pagnol's Marseille trilogy, the Fanny and Marius story. Raimu plays Marius's father and Fanny's father-in-law. A few years after that trilogy, he appeared in another Marcel Pagnol film, The Baker's Wife, which I think is just an extraordinary movie, one of my favorite films from the 1930s. Raimu tragically would die about 4 years after this from a heart attack, so he was only in his early 60s. Big star in France, relatively unknown here. I'm hoping that we can get some more of his more famous roles in the future. Now, this is one of Kino's surprises, and I have to just give some kudos to Kino, who release so many movies every month. Nobody else is going to put out a movie like this. The commercial prospects are dim. It's probably only going to appeal to a very small segment of physical release film fans who love the history of film. So every month you got to look through the Kino titles, through the Ilsa. They just announced Ilsa and Burt Reynolds and the Bronson movies and all, because they slip these in here. And you don't want to pass them by if you're interested in film history. So what kind of movie is Strangers in the House? It sounds like it might be a horror film. It sounds like it might be a home invasion film. But it's really it's a film about a lawyer, played by Raimu, who no longer practices, hasn't practiced for many years. And his wife had left him, and after his wife left him for another man, he took to drink, and he just roams around the house with a bottle in his hand. He has a daughter who he doesn't appear to love, and in fact, it's intimated that he doesn't even he suspects that his daughter might not actually be his daughter, because his wife was philandering about on him. So, and then we have cantankerous servants, one in particular who continue on in their service, because at one time before all this event happened, he was a very successful lawyer, highly respected in the community, but he's gone sour. So one night, a shot is heard. A man is found in the attic, a stranger. He is indeed the stranger in the house. And as it turns out, his daughter's boyfriend, lover, becomes the chief suspect. So the question is, what is Raimu going to do about this? So it's not a horror film, for sure, but it touches on a lot of it touches on a couple of very prominent social problems, and one of which is juvenile delinquency. Now, this is 1942. Juvenile delinquency becomes a big thing in the U.S. in the 1950s, where parents were worried about what their kids were doing. It's also, I think, a condemnation of the bourgeois, the class system. The bourgeois system had become, or the bourgeois class had become so corrupted and had lost their sense of their moral compass, and their self-indulgent parents, their parents that neglect their children. But in the end, this film begins as a kind of fable, and there's an opening sequence where we get the camera roaming through an obvious miniature set of a town, fake rain coming down. We see different stores in the town, people in town scenes where people are milling about, and it's a very ironic, almost comical kind of narration, and it sort of sets the tone that this film is maybe chiefly a fable, a moral fable. But the second half of the movie is a courtroom drama, so now we get into the real nitty-gritty drama-wise, because courtroom dramas are surefire. And recently I rewatched Witness for the Prosecution with Charles Lawton, which has great courtroom shenanigans going on. And just a few days ago, I rewatched Anatomy of a Murder for maybe the 50th time in a beautiful print. If you have the Criterion channel, that print that's streaming on there is just, it looks like HDR. And that's the movie with the greatest, my favorite courtroom scenes, with Jimmy Stewart, the small town country lawyer, up against the George C. Scott from the big city. So, and this film doesn't disappoint in the courtroom drama aspect, because we really don't know what's going on and what's going to happen. And you could see that the ultimate value of this film may be in the drama of a man trying to reclaim his dignity, and here is where Raimu really excels. And if I can avoid the glare, this is Raimu investigating. This is Raimu's daughter, played by Juliette Faber. I have never seen her before. In fact, I didn't recognize anybody else in this movie except for Raimu. So, getting back to Henry DeCoy for a minute, the director here, this was part of what was called the cinema of quality, and he is one of those directors in that group, identified as such, the cinema of quality, by the Nouvelle Vague directors, the New Wave directors. When they were critics, they were rebelling. This is the kind of film that the New Wave was rebelling against. It lacked life. It didn't have anything to do with the world as they saw it, or even the possibilities of cinema. It was sort of a dead end as they saw it. And what's strange about that is these movies really look good. I've seen quite a few of these movies that the New Wave, as much as I love the New Wave directors, some of these films, especially Strangers in the House, I mean, this is a really good film. And talk a little bit about Henri-Georges Clouzot. This was a film produced by Continental Pictures. Now, Continental Pictures was the company that the Nazis instituted in Paris. They were going to continue to make French films and weren't necessarily going to need to be propaganda films. And Clouzot worked for him, and he paid the price after the war because he was seen as a collaborator. This was a German company, which also produced La Corbeau, a movie a couple years later that Clouzot directed. And so not only is there there's no propaganda, like pro-occupation kind of propaganda, it's really, it's really, I mean, people read into it. You know, The Strangers in the House, the title itself could be representative of the Nazi occupation, and the dead man in the room could be an emblem of the Nazi invaders. But Clouseau, in La Corbeau as well, he is condemning the bourgeois. He does not like the bourgeois, and you could see that also in a sense that the bourgeois was so corrupt. That was a contributing factor in the French society sort of imploding on itself. The big military power just crushed by the German war machine in a matter of weeks. And Jean Renoir and Rules of the Games kind of anticipated that as well, anticipated it as that French society in and of itself was corrupt, and it had no strength to it. So this is a very beautiful restoration, I think 2018. There's a commentary here from Howard S. Berger and Nathaniel Thompson. It's a gushing incredible. Every scene is incredible. I get a little bit bored with that. But there's, it's certainly lively, and these guys know their French cinema. I mean, I don't know how they know so many, for many commentaries by them, and they seem to know everything there is to know about every era in movie history. So also my next film, I don't know if it's going to be my next video, but very soon I'm also going to be talking about another Kino release, Kino Classics release, The Doll, Ernst Lubitsch silent film, 1919. Another film that I had to look back to. I got to keep scrolling through because I don't want to miss these things. Now I'm not a silent film buff, so but I've done two in the past couple months. Silent film drama is a real blind spot for me. So again, kudos to Kino for releasing these kind of films that have limited appeal, but are really interesting, and especially they're very interesting to talk about, to make videos about, to be sure. Okay, thanks a lot for everybody who listened. I do appreciate it. Comments are welcome. Take care.